lots of stairs, so we're actually underground now. And fires don't go underground, so this never burned down. So this has been here from the first theatre on this site from 1663. And some of you have noticed there's a beautiful display cabinet there with some charred remains of earlier theatres. But we'll take up out of here, behind this sort of prison arrangement thing, there's what looks like a pile of rubble. That's because it's a pile of rubble. But behind the rubble is a little bit of wall, and that's all that's left of Mr. Sheridan's theatre. Did he tell you about his fire and everything? Absolutely tragic story, isn't it? It's quite a handy way of showing that's a new bit of wall there, and it matches that bit, and that bit matches that bit, and so on. And the floor used to be lower than this, and there used to be other tunnels leading out from here to other parts of London. One of them went down to the Strand, actually, to my house. We won't go into that now. And another of them went down to the river. And in those days, the river was wider, the ships were smaller, so ships could moor in that part of the river, and the sailors could nip up the tunnel to work backstage in the theatre. Because if you think about it, they're using the same sort of things, aren't they? Ropes, tackle, canvas, rigging, all that stuff. That's why the people who work backstage now are called the crew. Because originally they were crew of the ships. That's why we keep the lighting on the rig, because it's like the rigging of the sails, and we keep the scenery in the dock, and so on. Also, the sea and the theatre are both quite superstitious places for various reasons. And one of the big superstitions in theatre, as you probably know, is you mustn't whistle. Very, very bad luck to whistle in theatre. There are two theories that connect the whistling and the sailors. One is that sailors used to think it was bad luck to whistle at sea, because it was like being cheeky to the devil or something. So they brought that with them to the theatre. The other is that sailors actually used to communicate by whistling at sea, because the only sound shrill enough to carry over the wind and the waves. So they brought that with them to the theatre. And if you were strolling around the stage whistling very due to yourself, the sailor might think it was a signal, might drop half a ton of scenery on your head, might kill you. Bad luck. But no, I did mention it was haunted down here. Being the oldest bit of the building, obviously it's going to be haunted. So if you stay put for a second, I'm going to stroll casually, there they are, and give us a bit of ambience. Oh, not very much ambience, but there you go. Worth a try. Now, magic sound effects. Now that it's darker, it is of course that much more spooky, but also, since you can't see so well, your other senses might get stronger. And the ghost is most frequently encountered down here. It's very rarely seen, but quite often smelt. So have a sniff and see if you can smell anything floral. No, neither can I. But quite often we do actually get a smell of lavender down here. And that's connected with a man who worked here about 100 years ago in pantomime. Do you all know about Christmas panto? That there's usually a young man, or the leading young bloke is usually played by a girl. In fact, following the trend I set for those playing witches' parts. And there's usually a middle-aged woman played by a man, the pantomime dame. One of the first ever pantomime dames was a man called Dan Leno, originally a music hall star. He was enormously funny, hugely popular, lovely bloke, had a bit of a bladder problem. So every time he wet himself on stage, he'd run off and sprinkle his costumes with oil of lavender to cover up the smell. So when we... Oh, it's all right, you're not the ghost of Dan Leno, are you? Well, do you mind?
I've got
A gangway. No, that's fine.
Sorry.
That's fine. Every time we do get a whiff of lavender, we reckon it's the ghost of Dan Leno just wafting through. But Dan Leno was, as I said, a lovely bloke. He never harmed a fly. The other one isn't quite so friendly. Charles Macklin was an 18th century actor with a terrible temper who one day stabbed and killed a fellow actor in the green room in an argument over a wig. They were very expensive in the 18th century. And basically, he saw this other bloke, Hannum, wearing his wig. He said, you're a rogue and a villain, sir, that's my wig, sir. The other bloke said, this is a stock wig, sir, and I have as much right this wig, sir, as you, sir. After a lot more wigging and sirring, Hannum actually gave him the wig back. But by then, Macklin was so incensed, he got hold of his stick and lunged at him. Accidentally ran him straight through the eye and killed him. Bit nasty. He was tried for murder, but he pleaded manslaughter. He said he hadn't meant to kill him, and in fact his main defence was, who knows what a man may do in a passion? Oh, all right then. So they let him off. And He had carried on acting until he was 80. Oh, the school goes. He carried on acting until he was 89. And then, for the first time ever, he forgot his lines. He was playing Shylock in the Merchant of Venice. He went to the front of the stage and said something like, "Ladies and gentlemen, I've been seized with terror of the mind. I'm going to retire now so that I'll never again find myself in so ridiculous a position." And off he walked in the middle of the show. He actually died when he was more than 100 years old. But he's never left the building. Either because he's racked with guilt at having killed Mr. Allen, or because he wants to finish his final performance, we don't know. But lots of things are attributed to the ghost of Macklin. People get taps on the shoulder when there's no one behind them. They hear their name being called out when nobody knows who they are. They get dragged around on the stage by the scruff of the neck. And sometimes, very late at night, people hear a voice saying, "Keep quiet." And it comes from the first 4 rows of the stalls where his stage used to be, which happened to be directly above our heads.
Sorry, just pressing my shirt here. Oh, for a muse of fire.
I've just ascended the brightest of invention.
Introduce me.
It's all right, it's not Mr. Macklin, it's his boss. And very close friend, David Garrick.
Excellent. If you really want to know what's what, you better follow me, hadn't you? Keep together, keep smiling, mind your head, mind your feet, walk as well.